What you just heard are not sound effects from a film. They are auditory echoes recovered from incidents permanently sealed within the NightHowl Files. They are the last recorded sounds from places where the line between forest and hunting ground, between tree and talon, has been permanently erased. Tonight, we unseal a sequence of files concerning the haunted woods of the Pacific Northwest. These 5 accounts span from the deepest old-growth valleys, where the light never truly touches the earth, to the logging towns that have learned to ignore the shapes that move between the pines. Each file represents a breach, a moment where the ancient territorial intelligence that governs these territories made itself known to those who dared to trespass. Before we begin, subscribe to the NightHowl Files and activate notifications. The history we are about to recount is not for the faint of heart. It is evidence, and you will not want to miss what is revealed when we open the first case. Case File NHF-118. The Sap That Bleeds. Location: the Hoh Rainforest, Olympic Peninsula, Washington. Date: October 17, 1987. Subject: Elias Vance, a botanist with the National Park Service, was conducting a routine survey of a rarely visited sector of the rainforest. His field notes, recovered alongside his equipment, describe a world of relentless green, of ferns that stood like sentinels and Sitka spruces so vast their roots formed cathedral walls. He was a man of science documenting the known. On his 3rd day, Vance noted a peculiar stand of western hemlock. The trees were twisted, their bark marred by deep, vertical grooves that resembled claw marks. More disturbing was the sap. It was thick, viscous, and the color of oxidized blood. His notes read, "Sample H7 exhibits a hemoglobin-like substance. No known pathogen or fungus explains this. The air smells of wet fur and iron." Vance's subsequent entries become fragmented. He reports hearing footsteps that matched his own, but out of sync, as if something was walking just behind the veil of the foliage. He describes waking in his tent to the sound of something heavy dragging itself through the ferns, the scent of decay so potent it made his eyes water. On October 21st, he wrote a single stark line: "The trees are watching me. I can feel their gaze. It is not a metaphor." The final audio log, recovered from his recorder, tells the truth his notes could not. We hear Elias's panicked breathing, the squelch of mud under his boots. He is running. Then, a sound of tearing wood. Not a branch breaking, but the sound of a tree trunk itself splitting open. A wet, rhythmic pulsing follows. Elias whispers, "My God, it's a heart." The tree has a heart. A low, groaning bellow echoes, not from an animal's throat, but from the forest itself. The sound of creaking wood and snapping roots fills the recording as something massive and ancient pulls itself from the earth. The last sound is Elias's scream, cut short by a sound like 100 branches snapping at once. Search and rescue found his camp perfectly intact. His journal and recorder were left on his cot. The official report lists Elias Vance as lost, presumed deceased from exposure. The Park Service closed the sector indefinitely due to unstable soil. Our agents, however, found the stand of hemlocks. The clawmark grooves were deeper, fresh, and the blood-like sap was flowing freely, pooling at the base of the largest tree in a pattern that resembled an altar. The file has been sealed under Verdant Protocol. The entity, designated the Heartwood, is classified as a territorial genius loci. We believe it is not a single organism, but a symbiotic colony of predator and flora, as old as the rainforest itself. The Hoh does not simply have monsters in it. Parts of the Hoh are the monster. Case File NHF-155, The Tunnels of Mount St. Helens. Location: the blast zone of Mount St. Helens, Washington. Date: May 18, 2005, the 25th anniversary of the eruption. Subject: Jess Kincaid, a volcanologist, and Ben Carter, a geologist, were part of a team studying the rapid regrowth of life in the devastation zone. They were skeptics, believers in rock and data, working in a landscape that still smelled of sulfur and ash. While taking core samples near a newly formed lava tube, their ground-penetrating radar detected an anomaly. A network of tunnels too smooth, too symmetrical to be natural, running deep beneath the volcanic rock. Ben, against protocol, rappelled into a narrow fissure that led to one. His initial report was exhilarated. The walls are vitrified, glass smooth, and covered in carvings. This isn't geology, Jess. This is archaeology. The carvings depicted scenes of a civilization living under the mountain, and their worship of a colossal, bestial figure they called the Ember Heart. They showed rituals under the full moon and sacrifices to placate the mountain. Jess grew uneasy, noting in her log that the air in the tunnels was cold and devoid of the scent of sulfur. Instead, it carried the faint, acrid smell of ozone and hot stone. They began to hear sounds, deep, resonant breaths, like a bellows pumping, echoing up from the depths. Their communication equipment crackled with static that formed a low, guttural growl. On their fourth descent, they aimed to reach a large chamber indicated on their scans. Ben's head-mounted camera footage is the only record. The tunnel opened into a cavern vast enough to swallow a cathedral. In the center, surrounded by a lake of cooling lava, was a massive, obsidian-like formation, pulsing with a dim, orange light. As they watched, the formation shifted. A slab of rock slid back, revealing a single, slit-pupiled eye of molten rock. The Ember Heart was not a god in their carvings. It was a creature, slumbering in the heart of the volcano it had perhaps triggered. The creature let out a roar that was the sound of the mountain itself tearing open in 1980. The camera footage shakes violently as the cavern begins to collapse. We see Ben fall. The last image is a massive, clawed hand of cooled magma reaching for him. Only Jess Kincaid made it to the surface, suffering from severe shock and thermal burns on her back, as if she had been briefly exposed to a blast furnace. Her official statement claimed a minor steam vent explosion. The tunnel entrance collapsed behind her, sealing itself. Satellite thermal imaging of the area still shows a persistent, anomalous heat signature deep beneath the caldera, one that fluctuates in a slow, rhythmic pattern. This file is sealed under Ignis Protocol. The entity designated Emberheart is considered a Class V geovore, a subterranean predator that feeds on geothermal energy. The 1980 eruption was not its creation, but its awakening. It is not a guardian spirit of the mountain. It is a parasite within it, and we believe it is still hungry. But the volcanoes are not the only ancient things that sleep beneath this land. Our next file takes us north, to an island where the trees themselves are made of stone, and the legends are not carved in wood, but in bone. Case File NHF-192. The Silent Hunters of Ruby Beach. Location: Ruby Beach, Olympic National Park, Washington. Date: a continuous series of incidents from 1998 to the present. Subject: the local Quileute tribe has oral histories that speak of the beach walkers, pale, silent figures seen emerging from the Pacific fog. Park rangers, initially dismissive, have compiled a secret supplementary log of missing persons reports and anomalous findings, separate from official National Park Service records. The first modern ranger log entry, dated November 2, 1998, details the discovery of a half-submerged fishing boat, the Sea Serpent, found drifting a mile offshore. The engine was running. A warm pot of coffee was in the galley. There was no sign of the two experienced fishermen aboard. The only anomaly was a fine, gray, ash-like dust coating the interior surfaces and a single, perfect, saltwater-soaked footprint on the deck. A long, narrow foot with toes that were too slender and which ended in points. The incidents continued with a chilling regularity, always on nights shrouded in thick, oceanic fog. Campers reported seeing tall, gaunt figures moving with an unnatural, gliding silence along the tide line, their forms blurring into the mist. They never spoke, never made a sound. A wildlife photographer, whose camera was recovered from the surf, captured a series of blurred images. Enhanced by our analysts, they reveal figures with skin the color of bleached driftwood, and eyes that are solid, glossy black, like the obsidian stones found on the beach. The ranger logs note a pervasive smell during these events. Not of the sea, but of ozone and static, the air charged as if before a storm that never comes. The most definitive encounter was recorded on a ranger's personal digital audio recorder during a search for a missing child in 2017. The audio is mostly the sound of the foghorn and frantic calls. Then, a sudden deadening of all sound, as if the fog itself had become a soundproof blanket. A soft, whispering sibilance like sand shifting is heard. A ranger can be heard whispering. Contacts. 3 of them. They have the girl. There is no scream, only a faint, shimmering sound, like shaking a bag of fine glass beads. The dead air returns for a full minute before the normal sounds of the beach cautiously seep back in. The child was found an hour later, wandering alone, unharmed but mute with a shock that has never broken. In her hand, she clutched a piece of sea glass that was warm to the touch. The official explanation for the disappearances is riptides and hypothermia. The ranger who led the 2017 search took an indefinite leave of absence and was never heard from again. Our own long-term monitoring has confirmed the pattern. The silent hunters, as we have designated them, are tied to the coastal fog. They are not creatures of the water, but of the mist itself. They are harvesters, not predators. What they take, and for what purpose, remains unknown. This file remains open and active, classified under Brine Protocol. The entities exhibit properties of a collective consciousness, a hive mind manifested from the atmospheric conditions of the Pacific Northwest coast. They do not hunt in the traditional sense. They occur it. We advise all visitors to Ruby Beach and its surrounding coves to heed the fog warnings. Not because of the poor visibility, but because when the fog rolls in, the air grows still and the world goes quiet, you are no longer on a beach. You are in their gallery. Case File NHF-118. The Calcified Grove. Location: the Gifford-Pinchot National Forest, Washington, near the ruins of a logging camp abandoned in the 1920s. Date: September 21, 2015. Subject: Marcus Thorne and Chloe Lee, urban explorers and documentarians, were filming an episode for their web series on forgotten places. They were seeking the ghost camp of Gifford-Pinchot, a settlement whose entire population supposedly vanished overnight. They found the camp exactly as the legends described: cabins frozen in time, tables set for meals that were never eaten. But it was what lay beyond the camp that caught their attention. A section of forest where every tree, every fern, every leaf was turned to a stark white stone. It was a petrified forest, but unlike any in the geological record. Chloe, a geology student, noted in her vlog, "Petrification takes millions of years. This shouldn't be here." And the details, you can see the individual veins in the leaves. It's perfect. It's like it happened in an instant. Their footage shows them venturing deeper into the calcified grove. The air is deathly still and cold. The only sound is the crunch of their boots on a floor of stone pine needles. They begin to find the statues, not sculptures. They are the petrified forms of the missing loggers, their faces frozen in a moment of pure, abject terror, their hands raised to shield themselves from something. Marcus jokes nervously about Medusa, but the mood sours as they realize the sheer number of figures. Dozens of them, all facing in the same direction, towards the heart of the grove. Chloe points her camera at a figure half hidden behind a stone log. Its mouth is wide in a silent scream, and its eyes are not stone, but hollow, empty sockets. As they reach the center of the grove, they find the source. A single, living western red cedar, ancient and twisted, stands in a clearing. Hanging from its branches are hundreds of small, polished stones that clack together in a faint, discordant wind chime. At the base of the tree sits a figure, its back to them. It appears to be an old man, carved from the same white stone as the forest. As Marcus takes a step closer, the figure's head turns a full 180 degrees to face them. Its eyes are not sockets, but pools of swirling, liquid darkness. It opens its mouth, and a sound like grinding granite echoes through the grove. The camera footage begins to distort, the colors leaching away. Chloe screams Marcus's name. The last clear frame of the video shows Marcus's boot, the laces beginning to turn from fabric to solid, white stone. Chloe Lee was found 2 days later, wandering on a Forest Service road. She was catatonic and remains so to this day, confined to a state institution. Her right hand was permanently clenched into a fist. When pried open by orderlies, a single, perfect white stone, warm to the touch, fell from her palm. The authorities wrote off Marcus Thorne as another lost hiker. Our agents secured the area. The calcified grove is now under 24/7 remote surveillance. The living tree at its center remains. The stone figure is still seated at its base. On the night of the full moon, our motion sensors detect it, standing and walking a slow, deliberate circuit around the trunk of the cedar before returning to its seat. File sealed under Gorgon protocol. The entity, designated the Lithomancer, is believed to be a form of elemental spirit, a guardian of a place so sacred or so profane that it must be eternally preserved. It does not kill. It archives. The grove is not a graveyard. It is a library of frozen moments, and the Lithomancer is its lone, eternal librarian. We do not know what it is protecting or what it is waiting for. We only know that to enter its collection is to become a part of it. Case File NHF-137. The Glowing Man of the North Cascades. Location: the restricted watershed of the Skagit River, within the North Cascades National Park, Washington. Date: July 12, 2021. Subject: a joint USGS and Department of Energy survey team, callsign Sierra Team, was deployed to investigate anomalous, low-level radiation signatures that did not match any known mineral deposits or fallout patterns. The team, led by Dr. Eris Thorne, consisted of 4 specialists in geology, radiology, and field operations. They were equipped with full environmental suits and real-time data uplinks. The team's initial reports were clinical. The radiation was ambient, pervasive, and strangely cool, lacking the high-energy signatures of weapons-grade material. It was Dr. Thorne who first noted the biological anomalies in his field log. The local fauna exhibits modifications. A species of bark beetle with a bioluminescent fungal growth on its carapace. Lichen that pulses with a faint, greenish light. The ecosystem here hasn't been contaminated. It has been integrated. On their second day, they found the first footprint, a humanoid impression in the soft soil of a riverbank, glowing with a faint, persistent Cherenkov blue. The radiation levels began to fluctuate in a way that defied physics, spiking and dropping not based on proximity to a source, but in a slow, rhythmic pattern that one technician noted was almost like a heartbeat. Their communications became plagued with static, through which a faint, melodic humming could sometimes be heard. It was a simple, repeating sequence of notes, ancient and sorrowful. They began to find small, intricate structures woven from glowing moss and irradiated twigs, nest-like formations hanging from the branches of cedar trees. The air inside their sealed suits grew heavy, and their sensors began to pick up a new particle, one our physics division has since designated anomalous isotope 0. It is not found on the periodic table. The team's video feed from July 14th provides the confirmation. They had tracked the radiation to the mouth of a cave, from which the humming was emanating. As they approached, a figure emerged. It was tall, vaguely humanoid, but its form seemed to be composed of woven, phosphorescent roots and shimmering, crystalline structures that pulsed with an internal light. Where a face should have been, there was only a calm, featureless glow. This was the glowing man. It raised a hand, not in aggression, but in a gesture of recognition. The radiation spiked, not as a destructive wave, but as a wave of pure, transformative energy. The video feed shows Dr. Thorne collapsing, his environmental suit glowing from the inside. His final, choked words over the comms were, "It's not poison, it's a song. I can hear the atoms singing." The feed then whited out. The Sierra team was recovered by a military hazmat unit. 3 members were deceased, their bodies exhibiting total cellular transmutation. They were essentially human-shaped formations of crystalline silica and unknown alloys. Dr. Eris Thorne was the sole survivor. He was physically unharmed, but irrevocably changed. His eyes now emit a soft, constant light, and he speaks only in the same simple melodic hum the entity produced. He is housed in a maximum containment observatory, where he spends his days tending to a small, glowing lichen that grows on the wall of his cell. The official report lists the incident as a catastrophic failure of experimental sensor equipment resulting in fatal radiation exposure. The North Cascades watershed has been permanently closed to the public due to unstable geology and persistent radiological hazards. This file is sealed under Prometheus Protocol. We do not believe the glowing man is a singular entity, but rather a manifestation of the land itself, transformed by and bonded with an extraterrestrial or transdimensional energy source that fell to Earth long ago. It is not hostile. It is generative. It is trying to rewrite the biology of the region into a new, radiant harmony. Dr. Thorne was not attacked. He was converted. The song it hums is the frequency of this transformation. The North Cascades are not haunted by a ghost. They are being reborn as something new, and we are merely witnessing the painful, beautiful, and terrifying first notes of its genesis. The trees, the stone, the very air and water of this region are not merely a setting for these events. They are participants. They are accomplices. To walk beneath these canopies is to walk through a kingdom that was never ours to claim, watched by eyes that have seen civilizations rise and fall to dust. The official reports will speak of exposure, of animal attacks, of geological anomalies. But we at the NightHowl Files know the deeper truth. The shadows that move between the pines do not simply live in the forest. In ways we are only beginning to comprehend, they are the forest. If you have encountered something in the deep woods, a sound that had no source, a figure that should not exist, a presence that rewrote the rules of the world around you, submit your account in the comments below. The Order reviews all testimonies. Some are chosen for investigation, and a select few become part of the permanent archives. Subscribe to the NightHowl Files. Turn on all notifications. The history of the night is vast, and we have only just begun to unseal the first of the vaults. Keep your lights bright, your senses sharp, and remember, when you enter the old growth, you are not a visitor. You are a guest, and the hospitality of the ancient world is a fragile and often fatal thing. This has been a declassified transmission from the NightHowl Files. Until the next moon rises, stay awake, stay wary, and never walk alone.